In a moment that shook the monarchy, Queen Camilla stormed out of St. Giles's Cathedral after Princess Anne delivered a bold, unscripted speech that stunned the nation. With just one line, "A crown is not worn, it is earned," Anne ignited a royal firestorm that had been building for decades. The silent feud between the king's sister and his wife finally exploded in public view, leaving Camilla humiliated, and the world questioning who truly carries the spirit of the crown. Cameras caught it all. The gasps, the exit, the power shift. And now, Anne may hold more than just public loyalty. The royal event that turned into a power struggle. It was meant to be a solemn moment of unity, a ceremonial tribute to Queen Elizabeth II at St. Giles's Cathedral in early 2025. Instead, it became a royal powder keg, exploding in full view of press, public, and palace insiders. Princess Anne and Queen Camilla arrived separately, as expected, but the tension between them was palpable even before the service began. Observers noted that the two women exchanged no greeting, no eye contact. Camilla smiled for the cameras, Anne didn't. The event was scheduled with royal precision. Camilla would give a short address honoring her late mother-in-law, followed by Anne, whose long-standing dedication to the Queen and military service had made her one of the most respected royals of the modern era. But behind the scenes, something unexpected was brewing. According to a royal aide who reviewed the draft speeches, Anne submitted a standard statement for approval, but quietly rehearsed a different version in private. No one stopped her. No one thought she would go rogue. But Anne had come to the cathedral with a purpose, and it wasn't just remembrance. Camilla's speech was measured and formal, praising the Queen's legacy and the modern monarchy we now continue to shape. But when Anne took the podium, the room changed. Her voice didn't waver. Her gaze stayed sharp. And her words, they cut through the silence like a sword. "A crown is not worn. It is earned," she declared. "And some of us have carried it since birth." Gasps rippled through the cathedral. A few stifled coughs. But Anne didn't flinch. She touched her chest and revealed a replica brooch, once worn by Queen Elizabeth herself, a symbol of lineage and loyalty. Military officials in the audience stood. A handful of Scottish dignitaries clapped, and somewhere behind the altar, Camilla's hands clenched. Anne's public declaration that sparked chaos. Anne's words weren't just a tribute. They were a declaration. And for those watching closely, it was clear this wasn't accidental. This was intentional. The line that set everything in motion was simple, powerful, and impossible to ignore. A crown is not worn, it is earned. Coming from anyone else, it might have sounded poetic. But from Princess Anne, the woman who had served the monarchy longer and harder than almost anyone else, it was a challenge. A challenge to the very legitimacy of Queen Camilla's crown. As Anne reached into her coat and pulled out a replica of her mother's brooch, gifted to her in private years ago, the message became crystal clear. Lineage over optics. Duty over title. The Queen's true heir, in spirit, was not the woman beside Charles. It was the woman who had walked alongside the crown her entire life. The reaction from the crowd was instant. Scottish military officials applauded. Several clergy members looked stunned. Even the cathedral's organist briefly stopped playing. Something had shifted, but no one reacted more dramatically than Camilla. Footage later revealed her stiffening as Anne spoke. Her jaw clenched. her hands wrung tight at her side. Then, just as Anne closed her speech with the words, "We do not claim legacy, we protect it," Camilla stood, abruptly, without waiting for the closing hymn. She turned, motioned sharply to her aides, and stormed out. The Queen Consort's sudden departure sent whispers through the pews. It was a breach of protocol, a public exit mid-ceremony caught on live cameras. And just like that, an event meant to honor a monarch became the scene of a royal showdown. Camilla's storm out, the moment caught on camera. Within minutes, the footage was everywhere. Camilla, shoulders tense, walking briskly down the aisle with her security details scrambling to catch up. Her mouth moved fast, words muttered under her breath, caught faintly on one hot mic. "This is a bloody ambush." It wasn't just the walkout. It was how it happened. The Queen Consort's abrupt departure from the cathedral violated almost every rule of royal engagement, especially during a televised service of remembrance. Her security team, caught off guard, broke their usual formation. One aide tripped, another dropped a document. Folder. Back inside, Anne remained motionless at the podium. She didn't follow. She didn't flinch. She waited for the silence to settle, then returned to her seat. But outside, the damage was done. By nightfall, clips had gone viral. "Crown was never yours" trended on Twitter within 30 minutes. TikTok was flooded with side-by-side comparisons. Anne's solemn grace next to Camilla's furious exit. Public sentiment didn't just shift, it surged. Palace photographers were immediately ordered to delete official footage of the storm out, but civilian video had already hit every major news outlet. The story couldn't be contained. And the palace? It had no comment. That silence said more than any statement could. Camilla's exit didn't just make headlines. It sent a message, not of control, but of collapse. Private feud between Camilla and Anne finally explodes. This wasn't the first time Princess Anne and Queen Camilla had clashed, but it was the first time the whole world saw it unfold in real time. For years, palace insiders whispered about the Cold War brewing behind closed doors. There were the icy glances across royal banquets, the awkward silences at family gatherings, the strategic avoidance of joint events. It was subtle, carefully managed, but always there, simmering beneath the polished royal veneer. Princess Anne, the only daughter of Queen Elizabeth II, has long been known for her no-nonsense discipline, blunt honesty, and unwavering commitment to duty. To her, the crown was more than gold and jewels. It was a sacred responsibility, earned through decades of service, not awarded through marriage. And in her eyes, Camilla's path to the throne was riddled with compromise. Multiple royal staffers recall Anne's words from over a decade ago. "I serve the crown, not the drama around it." Those who heard it knew exactly who she meant. Camilla, meanwhile, fought tooth and nail to earn public acceptance. After years of being seen as the other woman, during Charles's marriage to Diana, she rebranded with charity work, media control, and calculated silence. But no amount of press coverage could erase what many believed. Her crown came with shadows. To Camilla, Anne was never just a rival. She was a threat. A symbol of everything Camilla had to manufacture: respect, loyalty, and authentic service. One former aide summed it up perfectly. "Anne is the real deal." Camilla always knew that, and she hated it. Behind palace doors, the rivalry intensified. There were scheduling conflicts that seemed too intentional. Staff divided into Anne's people and Camilla's people. The two women reportedly couldn't even agree on how to approach certain royal foundations, often clashing during planning sessions. One insider revealed that palace aides began removing Camilla's team from Anne's charity briefings entirely, just to keep the peace. But eventually, the divide grew too wide to hide, and St. Giles's Cathedral became the stage for its explosion. When Anne stepped up and publicly declared, "A crown is not worn, it is earned," she wasn't just making a point. She was drawing a line in royal stone. That line, drawn in front of cameras and the eyes of the world, shattered the fragile balance the palace had tried so hard to preserve. It wasn't just about hierarchy, it was about legacy, about which woman the people respected more. And Anne, standing tall in silence as Camilla stormed out, answered that question without ever raising her voice. A senior aide, who watched it all unfold in real time, later said, "This was never about protocol. It was about power." And at that moment, everyone could see who truly carried it. For Camilla, the crown may sit atop her head. But for Anne, the weight of it has lived on her shoulders for a lifetime. And now, that difference is impossible to ignore. The public response: Anne crowned in hearts. Within hours of the storm out, the public had chosen a side, and it wasn't Camilla's. Polls showed a stunning 25% spike in support for Princess Anne, with many Britons calling her the true face of the monarchy. Across the UK, Scotland in particular, there was a surge in admiration. Veterans groups, civic leaders, and even local MPs praised Anne's speech as dignified, powerful, and necessary. On social media, the wave became a movement. The real Queen and Anne, not Camilla, trended for 2 straight days. Viral posts compared Anne's decades of service to Camilla's rise through scandal and silence. One post read, "One earned it with duty, the other got it through marriage." It was retweeted over 600,000 times. Even prominent royal commentators broke tradition by speaking out. A former royal correspondent told ITV, "If there were an election for Queen today, Anne would win by a landslide." It wasn't just about the brooch or the speech, it was the symbolism. Anne, stoic and composed, had become the beating heart of a monarchy many feared was losing touch. Camilla, in contrast, was now seen as fragile, reactive, and out of step with public sentiment. In tabloid headlines, the contrast was brutal. A queen by title, a princess by right. Camilla walks out, Anne steps up. The crown has a new face, and it isn't hers. Inside the palace, senior aides were reportedly alarmed. Damage control teams drafted statements that were ultimately scrapped. They feared any response might add fuel to the fire. The royal press office stayed completely silent, but the silence only made things louder. And in that silence, Anne's voice carried further than ever before. Camilla retreats from public view. In the days following the St. Giles's event, Queen Camilla vanished. All of her upcoming public appearances, including a long-planned hospital visit and a state luncheon, were abruptly cancelled. The official reason? Health and rest. But palace insiders told a different story. According to one source, Camilla was deeply shaken, spending most of her time behind closed doors at Clarence House, refusing even to speak to staff. For at least 48 hours, she allegedly refused direct communication with King Charles, answering messages only through aides. One insider said bluntly, "She feels humiliated, betrayed, and furious that no one stopped Anne. Behind the scenes, Camilla reportedly threatened to step down as queen consort altogether unless Charles issued a formal reprimand to his sister. But Charles, already juggling his role as monarch and family mediator, refused. He knew one wrong move could ignite a full-blown public crisis. The tension at Clarence House grew unbearable. Meetings became icy. Senior aides described the atmosphere as a Cold War in pearls. Camilla, once so careful about managing her public image, now found herself cornered by silence and scrutiny. Her most vocal allies in the press held back. Longtime supporters in Parliament offered little more than polite concern. Meanwhile, her absence only amplified Anne's presence. And as Camilla retreated, the monarchy began to tilt, not toward scandal, but toward something even more dangerous: irrelevance. Princess Anne's quiet rise and the crown's future. While Camilla hid from the spotlight, Princess Anne returned to work the very next morning. She didn't hold a press conference. She didn't issue a statement. Instead, she visited a local military rehabilitation center in Leith, shaking hands with wounded veterans, chatting quietly, and refusing to speak about the cathedral incident. One reporter managed to ask if she had any regrets about her speech. Anne simply smiled and said, "Service speaks louder than ceremony." The moment was small, humble, but across the country and the world, it landed like a royal thunderclap. Her approval ratings skyrocketed again. Even figures from outside the UK began to comment. A senior EU diplomat tweeted, "Anne is the kind of monarch we need in modern times, unshaken, unbought, and unbothered." Back inside palace walls, the whispers began. The phrase Queen Anne moved from fantasy to discussion. While legally impossible under current law, the idea of Anne taking on a more symbolic leadership role, especially in Scotland, was gaining traction. Some even floated the possibility of splitting ceremonial representation, giving Anne an elevated position north of the border. A royal aide reportedly said, "Camilla wears the crown, but Anne holds the kingdom's respect." And that, more than any title, is what's now shaking the monarchy. For King Charles, this isn't just about loyalty. It's about legacy. The public has spoken. The family has fractured. And the woman walking forward isn't wearing the crown, but she's leading like she already has it. The monarchy stands at a crossroads. One woman is cloaked in pearls and titles. The other wears nothing but history, service, and the will of the people. And in the hearts of millions, the crown has already shifted. Camilla walked out wearing the crown, but Anne walked out with the people. The monarchy's balance has shifted, and it won't return easily. What happens next could change royal history forever. Like, share, and subscribe, because this isn't just a rift between women. It's a battle for the soul of the crown.